Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
I'm David Leary.
I'm Marie Phillips.
I'm Jennie Taber.
Thank you so much for joining us here at the Accounting and Finance Show in Los Angeles.
Yay.
The LA Convention Center.
Yes, that's what that background noise is. We're here on the floor.
And we're this conference is competing with the citizenship thing that they do here with like 20,000 people. So I was walking into the convention center and I'm like, wow, there's so many people coming to the accounting show. And then they all go the other way to the citizenship ceremony.
Big ceremony, yep.
Yeah. So
we should take our portable rig and go over there and ask everybody as an additional question. Like,
what is advisory?
Divine advisory. You knew where I was going with this. You exactly knew where I was going with this.
What do you want to do as a job when you're an American?
Do you want to be an accountant?
Yeah.
Here are the ways you can do it.
That's right. Shall we just jump into the news here? Or?
We did get a review.
Okay.
Do you want me to read that review?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so this review is another 5-star review. Thank you. Required listening. If you're an accountant, bookkeeper, or basically anyone who works in the accounting industry, you should be listening to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. Blake and David curate the latest industry news in an engaging and efficient manner that will absolutely keep you in the know within your profession. And this is from Kenji Kuramoto, who actually we interviewed a few episodes back.
Yeah.
So
thanks a lot, Kenji.
He wrote a review. He must have listened to his own episode and got excited and wrote us a 5-star review. So we did get a review this week.
That's fantastic. So what should we start with this week, David? What's top of mind for you?
I caught up on the airplane flight a little bit. iNSYNQ had their outage.
Oh, yes. iNSYNQ.
So that was going on
this
for
is
a
not
while
the band.
Not
This
the
is,
band.
Yeah.
Well, we're not actually sure how you pronounce it. It's spelled what? I-N...
SYNQ.
Okay. So it could be iNSYNQ.
Sounds right.
If so, I'll see if I can splice any of that into the background of this episode.
Doesn't sound like they're in sync with what they need to be doing.
Oh. I'll definitely do a sound effect for that. We can talk about that. There's also a TurboTax Intuit free file is back in the news. That just never seems to end. ProPublica is still on the march about that. I think Jenny, you've got something about the 4-day work week.
4-day work week.
Mm-hmm.
And Marie, what's
some exciting survey about who works remotely and who doesn't.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't we get started? What do we want to do first? How about iNSYNQ? What happened with them?
Let's do that. You always know we've crossed a new line when Krebs on Security is covering the accounting industry.
Right.
Because there'd be no reason for him to cover us unless there's a security problem. So iNSYNQ went down. They get hit by the same ransomware attack that hit CCH.
Well, similar type of thing.
It's you talked about it. You did the research a couple weeks back. It's called...
I don't know. There's different names for these viruses, right? But they get in, and there's two different kinds. One is ransomware, where it like locks up your computer and encrypts it and demands payment in Bitcoin in order to unlock it. And then there's just like generic malware, which gets in there and tries to like steal people's information, right? Which, of course, accounting software is a great target for that, right? So this was a ransomware attack specifically.
This is a ransomware attack, and they pulled everything down, but they just didn't pull down the servers, right, that people didn't have access to. They wound up shutting down apparently their Twitter account because they were getting angry tweets at them, and they didn't want to have to deal with it. So it's exact opposite of the example we talked about last week when the the Australian tax office, they shut their website out of problem. They had an outage, and they were very proactive on Twitter communicating to everybody. So it's the exact opposite thing that happened here. And it goes, I think, CCH they didn't communicate properly when they had an outage.
Yeah.
That really affected us in a bad way. It was down for, I'm in tax now, so it was down for a good 3 days.
The CCH outage.
Yes, okay. The CCH outage. And there was very little communication about that. We had no idea when it was coming back. When you're in the middle of it, it's panic-inducing because you have no idea. And
you had some deadlines coming up,
it was right before
right?
the May 15th deadline.
Right. So how were you getting appraised of, like, how did you know when it was going to come online? Or you were just waiting? Like
Googling for info.
That's crazy to me.
On Accounting Today.
Because, like, you're at Armanino.
Yeah.
And that's a largest California-based firm.
Yep.
Right? Full disclosure, I used to work there with you, Jenny.
Yes.
And to me, that's insane that CCH wouldn't have some person calling every hour to update you. I don't know.
There was something that happened this week where there was an update over the weekend. So yesterday, when we got into work, the update wasn't installing properly, and it was happening apparently not just us. It was
our firm as well was down for 2 to 3 days.
Well, I didn't even hear about that.
Over the weekend and then early this week.
Yeah. So eventually we got the updates, but I was like, I can't get into my tax app.
Yeah. That's very frustrating.
So this went down on last Tuesday on the 16th. They notified everybody on the 19th. And then even as this morning...
So you're talking about the iNSYNQ attack.
The iNSYNQ attack, yeah.
Right.
And even as of this morning, I lost the tweet, people were not able to get in.
QuickBooks, right? Because it's the
QuickBooks online
provider.
Hosted.
Yeah.
QuickBooks, sorry.
That's who they
QuickBooks
are, right?
desktop hosted.
Yeah.
This to me it's so crazy that in 10 years, the conversation has shifted from like, is QuickBooks online or is cloud accounting secure, to now we're questioning the security of desktop because these hosted solutions aren't secure. And why is that? Why are the hosted solutions, why can't they?
I don't know what the why is. I just think like if you have a firm and the whole point of using these hosted solutions is to outsource your IT department because supposedly, and if you can go to iNSYNQ's blog post, you can go to iNSYNQ's website, they 24/7 security experts monitoring everything. And so you're paying a premium to outsource this to machines that are getting hacked. Right. So what's the point? You might as well just go true SaaS, true cloud.
Well, and I think the problem too is that if you are using a hosted solution, your users, like the users on the platform, are the biggest risk. Even if the hosting platform itself is secure, I might go and install something like that's malware, right? So then to get really secure, you have to lock down all the apps. But then that defeats the purpose of the hosting, which is to have all this flexibility, right? So
yeah, we did have a few like threats and issues at the firm I'm with now. And what we ended up doing is hiring an audit company that only audits for your IT security levels, that came in, gave us a list of recommendations. And now it takes, 7 logins to go into the software you actually need to use. Yeah. And if you're an airplane or internationally, if you're outside the US and don't have service, you cannot work because you can't get into your computer.
That happened in my wife's company too. Like she is not allowed anymore. If she travels abroad, she can't work.
Yeah, or they also removed access to a lot of anything that's email related. So you can't go onto Gmail to check your emails because that's, I think, a big threat. Will a user end up downloading an attachment on a personal email? So yeah, there are ways, but you got to find the right mix.
I still just don't understand how these jump from one machine to the next machine to the next machine. Like, is that just a fundamental flaw of the hosting companies?
Well, I think they're I mean, I'm no expert, but I think they're utilizing the same server for multiple firms or multiple like files, right? Because it wouldn't make sense to have one computer dedicated to just one.
Yeah, it's not one physical machine, but like I used to work with a lot of VMware back in my QA days.
Right.
And you'd power it off. It would just be like opening a Microsoft Word file, typing in it, closing it, opening up another Microsoft Word file, and you wouldn't expect stuff you do on this Microsoft Word file to magically get into the other Microsoft Word file. Right. But that's kind of what's happening.
There's like something about there's not like enough of a wall between these
PC to PC. Yeah. And I suspect this is happening because they know if once they get into one, now they're into 400, 500, who knows how many.
Yep.
And because these companies aren't going to disclose it. It's not like Florida, right? That county in Florida paid the ransom.
Right.
2 weeks ago or so.
There's a city in Florida. Actually, there's a bunch of cities that have been hacked by ransomware recently. And
so now I'm wondering if any of these companies are starting to pay the ransom.
Who knows?
Well, that's a question for the iNSYNQ president.
Yes. Oh, and the what's his name from iNSYNQ? Not Justin Timberlake, right? Eliot Li Chang. I saw that he was online tweeting about this, and he has offered to come on the show and talk. Yeah,
then you can ask the question.
We'll ask him about this. We'll say, hey, what happened? How are you going to stop this in the future? He is his Twitter profile says leader, entrepreneur, investor, CEO, and board member of CloudX, a holding company of cloud-based solutions for SMBs, including iNSYNQ. So he owns the company that owns iNSYNQ, it sounds like.
I'm sure we'll still be talking about this story next week because, like you said, there's tweets and people are calling out their support, that their support is not giving out honest answers still. So
cool. So what was next? Free File, right? We're going to talk about that. Should we jump into Free File?
Free File your beat. Want to jump on that?
All right. Well, so TurboTax is back in the news. for our listeners who may not have been following the story, ProPublica has been investigating Intuit for supposedly making it very, very difficult for tax filers to find the free version of TurboTax, the version that TurboTax committed to create for the IRS in partnership with them as like a deal for the IRS not making its own tax filing software, which they, tax agencies do all over the world, except for here in this country for some reason. So Intuit had this deal and apparently was like hiding and making it very difficult for people to find the truly free version of their product. They even had like different names. One was, there was Free Edition,
TurboTax Free Edition, and TurboTax Free File.
There was Freedom Edition and Free File. Like, it's so difficult. I don't even know the difference to the names. They had names that were almost the same. So basically what happened is there's another ProPublica follow-up story saying that when the Trump tax cuts came into effect, that reduced the number of people that were going to be filing like itemized deductions and all these special forms, right? Because Jenny, it raised, you're a tax person, right? It raised it
raised the standard deduction up to, God, if I get this wrong, it's going to be embarrassing, but like,
it's not a test.
Like 12,000
something.
Yeah. So basically it took away the exemptions, but if it's less likely that you'll itemize.
Got it.
Because you'll reach that threshold of the standard deduction.
So that's why that was actually a threat to TurboTax, because it meant fewer people are filing complicated tax returns. Right?
Yeah, and that's what the ProPublica calls out. Like, they won't buy the TurboTax Deluxe because you don't need all that extra stuff.
So what Intuit did is they apparently took a bunch of forms that used to be in the free edition and made them part of the paid edition so that people would have to pay more, or that people that would continue to have to pay. So,
or is it one of those things where you have to pay up front and then you get refunded for it or something like that? Can you say, hey, I qualify as a free filer, please refund me?
Yeah, well, so people have been trying to call TurboTax to get refunds who would have otherwise qualified for free filing, but were steered into the paid product. And at first, Intuit was giving those refunds, but then they realized that it would be a lot of refunds, and so now they're not doing that.
And it looks like ProPublica has another recorded phone call as well.
Yes,
so you'll have to maybe stitch that audio into the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. It's some of these phone calls are really interesting with the strategies that TurboTax is using to avoid giving refunds to people. So I mean, these are people that made, like, here's an example of someone who made just over $12,000 as a graduate teaching assistant and had student loans. She began filling in her details on TurboTax, and then in order to get the actual tax break for the student loans, she had to upgrade to TurboTax Deluxe to claim it. So even though she only had like $12,000 of income,
and she was probably only getting a refund because if she was getting paid by W-2, is getting withheld.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
if she was 1099, maybe she had to pay something. She didn't pay estimated.
Well, the ironic thing is that it cost her more to upgrade and file than the tax deduction was worth. That's always the worst, right? The thing I hate the most about doing my taxes is when I go to all the trouble of itemizing everything, and it takes me hours and hours, and then it tells me, "Oh, you're better off just taking the standard,
you get nothing."
Deduction.
But I still do it just in case.
Just in case, right? But that's frustrating. Well, let's talk about how many firms are using remote access technology, right, Marie?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, I would think, especially based on the people we're surrounded with, that everybody is in the cloud. Everyone is using remote access. And reading this survey that was published by CPA Trend Lines, only 60% of firms employ remote access tools. So what that means is 40% of firms do not remote access into their computer, do not work in the cloud, do not work on online software. So they have to drive to work, to go to their computer station, to use a program installed on their computer only to do any work, whether it's tax, audit, accounting. It just blew my mind.
I wish our listeners could see our brains all exploding right now, right? Like,
actually, before I got into public accounting, that's how it worked when I was in private industry.
I
had everything on my office computer.
So would you remote into it, like if you were at home?
Never.
Yeah, no. That's true, actually. When I used to work for Forever 21, we did everything in Excel, and the only accounting software they had was Lawson. So $3.5 billion company running all of their work on two software that were desktop.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but now we do everything in the cloud, 100%. Like we have two softwares that our firm cannot move in the cloud, which is tracking time and tracking expenses. Mm-hmm. Everything else is pretty much in the cloud. And our servers are we still need to VPN, which for the listeners, that means I just need to download a program that allows me to access my computer remotely from home.
And that's what the survey is talking about.
Yeah, that's what they're talking, which is the most basic, first step from being able to work remotely.
But if you were 100% cloud, like truly using cloud SaaS apps, if you took that survey, you'd say, I don't do remote access anymore.
That's true.
So that number could be dubious. It might not be, 60% might be acceptable.
But I really doubt that the other 40% are saying, like, I use all cloud, 100% cloud, and I never need to remote.
Because at best, that number is 10% at best.
At best, right? The people who are all 100% cloud. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Even the most cloud firms, like Marie, you guys are,
we're definitely leveraging cloud.
Yeah.
But we're not 100% cloud based.
Right.
The biggest, there is not one business day where I can be fully in the cloud because I will need to log in to access client files. And that's a remote, login, for which I need my phone and I need to be, within the US and et cetera. So it's kind of silly. There are still a few ways where we can improve on our processes.
This might be a good point to stop and do the Jeopardy thing where we meet our contestants.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, Marie, you mentioned your firm.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your firm and what you do there?
Absolutely. So I work for Gersey Schneider. I started working there over 6 years ago. And about 4 years ago, started the accounting practice. So it was just me with 3 tax partners. They kind of looked at me. We're like, okay, what do you do? And I said, well, I just do accounting. So they said, okay, go ahead, build a practice from scratch. So now we're 5. We started with online QuickBooks, desktop at the time, and then online. But what we do is CFO outsourcing, cloud accounting, which means bookkeeping in the cloud, but we leverage technology to avoid data entry, and a lot of consulting work.
So 5 years ago, it was all tax and audit?
5 years ago was all audit.
All audit?
Yes.
Wow, totally 100% audit firm. Like that?
No. My career.
Your career.
The firm actually is 60% litigation. So if you want to get a divorce and you need a litigator to come and investigate how much you or your spouse spent on which credit card, that's what we're excellent at.
Oh, so do you get to do those forensic engagements where you No?
I worked on one and I have to... bless the people who work in that department because you have to have amazing human skills to deal with customers at the hardest in the hardest phase of their life.
Yeah.
And so yes, a big chunk of our office works in litigation. But then we have a small business management department that's more full on, buy houses, handles purchases and sales of assets, A to Z for a customer, including accounting. And we have a large tax department, and also within that department, we have accounting and tax and audit.
And you guys, you mentioned you're fully on cloud except for 2 applications?
So only my team, so 5 of us are fully in the cloud, except the application that allows time entry and expense tracking. And then we have to access all client files on a T drive, like a server. The other departments are not all in the cloud, but they're moving towards more and more cloud-based accounting, including CCH. I think that has been such a difficult transition because the amount of downtime they've had to experience, including during tax season last year, has been painful. I think everybody's trying to do their best and get to a place where it's smooth, but it takes time.
It's also been complicated by the fact that the software had to change drastically because of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up extending a greater percentage, I think, than I don't want to say every year before, but it's a lot more extensions. So we have a nice fall busy season ahead of us to look forward to.
I hope you guys can start early.
Yeah, it's starting. We're already in it.
Yeah.
It's
like a no downtime year.
It's fine.
So Jennie, let's talk about the 4-day work week, and then then we'll talk about your background.
On USA Today, there was an article, the 4-day work week, the 4-day work week. Is this the next big thing? There was a study they interviewed a CEO of a Seattle-based design and marketing firm and noticed that as the work weeks logged on, her employees' energy and productivity wilted.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I had similar experiences where I have all my energy at the beginning of the week on Monday and Tuesday, and by Friday, I just want to go home. And if I get all my work done, I can do that. But that's just how I work personally. So I feel very that the 4-day work week could be a big thing if firms or companies allow their employees to work to their strengths and work to their best, how they work most productively, which could be slamming 10 hours a day into a 4-day work week. Because I ended up working more than 40 hours a week usually, but just
you'd compress
front ending it.
Yeah.
In the first half of the week.
Yeah.
And
that's one of the options that the article highlights is people working 10-hour days, 4 days, Monday through Thursday, and being more productive or getting the same amount done, right?
I think you get that kind of senioritis, or at least I did on a Friday. You think, oh, it's a Friday, I can relax. Some Fridays are not like that. But if it can be, wouldn't that be nice?
But the promising part of this to me is if everybody just works Monday through Thursday, I always love on a Friday afternoon, email stops, all the inbound stops, and you get more work done in like 4 hours on a Friday afternoon than you do the rest of the week. So if nobody's working on a Friday, that's like a solid 8 hours of uninterruption-free work, which would be super productive for everybody.
That's true.
Everybody should just pretend they work a 4-day week.
Right.
And just really sneak in that fit.
But I remember I always got put in a bad mood if someone gave me new work on a Friday afternoon. I was just like, I gave them the dirty look.
Well, that's why if you're a good manager, you got to schedule that email to go out Monday morning.
Right.
Instead of Friday at 4 if you really want it to get done.
Because then I'd be stressed all weekend thinking, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?
It is really interesting. We actually love doing that at the firm too, because it's our way to actually retain the more senior managers that may not be looking forward to becoming partner. Mm-hmm. So the ones that want to go more into a director track, we have started to offer that. Like you come in Mondays at 11 a.m. and then you take off Friday. That way nice. We can, make sure that you can still grow with the firm, but you're obtaining that work-life balance or whatever it is, right? If you want to just work from home half the time, the partners are really flexible.
Does this impact us with that whole, people are obsessed still with that billable hour?
Yes.
Does the mindset, hey, we're going to shift you a 4-day work week. And hey, that's 10 more hours of a week we could still try to bill for. And why don't, will they just pretend, everybody will shift, we'll just recreate working 10-hour days instead of 8-hour days, and everybody working that 5th day for 10 hours.
The point is, if you're burnt out by a certain time, you're not going to be productive. So there's no point in trying to shove more work into a tired person, I guess.
But you bill for it the same.
Yeah.
The clients don't know.
And here, let's give some context to this. So I love this story, Jenny, because of some of the stats in here. First of all, how many organizations are actually offering 4-day work weeks? It's still pretty small, but it's growing. It's 15%, which is more than I thought. That's a lot. And that's up from 13% in 2017. And then here's the great part. Here we are talking about, 4 days versus 5 days versus 40 hours versus 32 hours. Research shows that employees only do about 4 hours of actual work during the day.
I wonder if that's true at a CPA firm where they track your rates and then they're we get an email once a month with here's everybody's stats, their productivity and all of it based on their PTO or no PTO. So there is a pressure. And then we have during summer month, May through about August on the tech side, they do little whoever gets the most hours, or if you get over 120 hours that you build this month, you get a gift card. So I think they still push that a lot to make sure that doesn't happen, but it sounds right.
Well, I suspect that at a lot of firms, the people who are billing lots of hours are just gaming the system.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And nobody wants to admit it. I can't be the only one who had a really hard time actually keeping track of the work I was doing, because I'm going back and forth between, 20 different clients that I'm managing. I'm not tracking every email I'm sending. That's insane. So I would just, at the end of the day, kind of look at what I had done and just apportion the 8 hours into the buckets that I felt were most appropriate. So if like I had a particularly difficult client and I had enough budget, I would just say, I work 4 hours on that, right? Jenny, you've
I
heard
put 4 hours of energy into this client.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's because it's not how much you're actually working.
Now,
it's
all of your CPAs.
Yes.
Right, all three of you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, is this like an ethical thing? Like when push comes up at the end of the day, like you being the CPA are like, yeah, you're just winging the time and writing down.
I don't think it's fair sometimes to, like, I try, if as much as possible, if it's a quick call or something, I always tell a client, it doesn't call me because it'll be cheaper to call me and I fix it now than if you wait until year end and then it takes 8 hours, and I won't bill for that call. But later on, if I end up doing, we bill by 15-minute increments. So if I end up doing 50 or 55 minutes on a client, of course I'm going to round it up if we've been on the phone 4 times that month. But I'm not going to go and like bill a 0.25 hour, for a call.
I always like to look for efficiencies. So I don't like to waste time. And I feel the billable hour is not really an hour that's all billable.
No.
And but mine is. I think mine is. I feel like
breaking news.
I feel like my work. If that's an hour, that's a true hour. That's So maybe that'll count for an hour. A little change. I don't know, but like.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is like I would work some hours where I'm working on a client. And I'm like, wow, I really didn't accomplish much at all.
Yeah.
Mostly because I was spending the time learning something. So I felt guilty. Am I supposed to bill for that? Well, the firm would say yes, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then I would spend I would do something for a client that was amazing. Maybe it only took me 15 minutes, but it was clearly something that would have taken another person at the firm 2 hours, right? So then I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Well,
not only do you are most invoices built on the billable hour and how you charge your clients based on inputs, which is stupid, but in order to get evaluated as an employee, they look at your billable hours,
right,
your chargeable hours, and I feel like I'm frustrated because I feel like my value isn't related to that at all. It's your relationship with the client. It's, are you getting all your work done? Is anybody waiting on you or complaining about you? Or do you have the reputation of being lazy? Or
you train others, which is not billable.
Yeah,
time.
Lots of other factors that come in. So sometimes it can be frustrating to be valued on something on how much time you spend on something. Which, if you spend less time on doing the same work, you should be valued more.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It eliminates all the motivation to be efficient,
right,
or to get better.
Yeah. I actually, Jenny, you've heard my story. I have 2 stories from my time at the firm together. One involved a senior accountant who we got along really well. Like, we kind of had the same, let's get things done attitude, this, screw this administrative crap. And so she showed me her secret timesheet. She had a secret timesheet and her official timesheet. And her secret timesheet was how much work she actually did. And then she had a budget of hours that she knew she was allowed to bill to these clients based on the budget that had been established. And so she would just make sure every week that she was billing, up to that budget amount, because her budgeted hours filled the week. So.
But you can lose the purpose of understanding better your profitability on clients, or which clients are you. Sometimes I don't. I know there's certain clients where it's so tight, and I'm just not going to bill for that. I'm just going to eat it and not get paid for it, because I'm just like, you know what? I know it's going to be a write-off, and that's going to take me an extra 30 minutes at the end of the month to do all my write-offs. I may as well not. But then you lose that sense of, is it a D client, and do you need to let them go?
Well, what I hate the most is that it just penalizes taking risks. Yeah. Right. And trying new things, because most of the time when you try new technology, you're going to waste time at the beginning. And so there's no incentive at a big firm or at any firm where they're primarily measuring you based on your hours to do any of that stuff. Because all it does is reduce your hours and make you less efficient in the short.
Yeah, because as soon as you figure out how to take an hour, something that took an hour, and now you know how to do it in 6 minutes.
Right.
And now you need that 6 minute thing across every client. The firm just lost hundreds of
revenue.
I actually, when I see budget numbers for how much time I'm supposed to spend on a return, I take that as a challenge. So I say oh, this is budget for 6 hours. I accept your challenge. I will do it in 3.
It's tough the following year. When something
Yeah.
like, why is it more expensive?
They assign it to somebody else. They're like, well, Jennie did it in 3.
Yeah, actually, everybody who follows in your footsteps
Right.
Jennie, is probably hates
Yes.
hates what you've done.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
To make everyone hate me.
So speaking of billable time, I want to make sure I heard you correctly, Marie. You said that you still have to do some desktop billing software you have to sign into.
Yes, we do. It's called Adherence. The tough part is because the firm is mainly a litigation firm with a tax department that is growing. I think with time they may be at the same level, but up until now, this is a heavily customized software that needs to be set up a certain way
So it's
for
like a
litigation.
it's like a legal practice management
Yes,
software.
it really looks like that. And so they actually have been going to the IT has been going to conferences and the administration team to see, can we replace that? But it would be $500,000 investment, not just in terms of software, but training and the cost associated with it. In my opinion, like, yeah, let's do it. Or at least give me the software I can use from my team so we're not constantly. And it's been painful because if you turn in your timesheet late, you can get penalized. And
Like financially penalized? Oh, no.
Ooh.
because it's like you have 260 employees in the firm, so you have one HR person that's chasing 260 timesheets at the end of every month that they eventually had to implement a penalty. But it really affects morale on the team. Like I've had one employee get dinged $300 because he missed a 0.25 entry. And so it's kind of like,
Yeah, that's
you
hard.
see like the pain it creates in your team. And I was in France to visit family a few years ago, and kind of like the same thing, like freaking out. I can't remote log into that software from France because of the internet speed. And you had to remote into your computer and then from the computer into the software. So it just couldn't hold that. So I had to have my team at the time, my staff, find a way to get access to my own timesheet so she can do my timesheet for me.
So you're literally calling in your timesheet.
Yeah, like it was just like brutal. So they are trying to implement in the cloud where you could have an access online, but it's still clunky. Like I tried this week and it wasn't working.
So Jennie, you and I used to work together at Armanino on the same team in outsourced accounting. Now you're in tax. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and your background in Armanino?
I'm Jennie Taber. I work for Armanino, and I'm a tax senior. And I actually came in as a senior, having been promoted from OFA, which is the outsourced finance and accounting department at Armanino. And that was my background. I had done accounting in private industry before, monthly financials, monthly close, reconciling bank accounts, everything to keep the company going. And I said, I'm going for my CPA. I'm at a public accounting firm. I've never done tax. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I want to make a move. It seems like a great place. They have an internal mobility program there, which is official now. It wasn't official at the time that I transferred, but ended up transferring to tax. It's very interesting. It's a totally different part of my brain now.
How is it different than what we were doing at outsourced accounting?
Well, outsourced accounting, it was kind of busy all the time in terms of schedule. And tax is more seasonal. So it gets really, really busy and intense twice a year. And then what I did this summer is I went on vacation for the first time.
Right, which is hard to do in accounting.
Yeah, because in outsourced if you're not doing monthly close, which is the first end of the month, you have constant work, like payroll, different deadlines that are happening all the time. So having someone else help you do your work, like with the timesheets, is a challenge. But in tax, there are like dead zones, and there are very intense, busy zones. So that's the main difference in terms of the work.
But you like the challenge. You like having all that work.
There's always something new.
Yeah.
And I enjoy puzzles and figuring out puzzles and figuring out details and things like that. And so far, it's really fun. It works.
Well, I think that's all the time we've got today. David, where can people follow you online, get in touch with you?
I'm at David Leary on Twitter. That's probably the easiest.
Yeah. And how about you, Marie? Where should people connect with you online?
I'm on LinkedIn, Marie F. Phillips, and you can also find me on Twitter or any of the social media platforms.
Cool. How about you, Jenny?
Jennie Taber CPA on LinkedIn. I am not on Twitter, so don't try to look for me there. If someone is there, that's not me.
Let's get you signed up now.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us today, and it was great to see you both in person, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Blake and David.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.